First of all, I don't know, give it up for the legal panel. We're still in the room, give it up. All right, okay, so we are going to, this is the digital panel. That's an extremely broad topic. So we're gonna try to get into a number of different elements around various digital issues pertaining to the industry. First off, real quick, let me get a sense of who's in the room. If you are an artist in the room, please raise your hand. All right, it's a lot of people. What about if you are a producer? How about managers, business support people, like lawyers, agents, publicists, that kind of thing? Okay. DJ? All right. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to ask my fellow panelists to introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of jump into it. And we're going to make sure that we save some time towards the end so that we can answer any questions that you guys may have. So I'll start it off. My name is Bryan Calhoun. I have worked in the music industry for over 25 years, and since really around 2002, 2003, I've had a very specific focus on in digital. Legal panel, settle down. Settle down, legal panelists. So I've focused a lot in the digital space. I was head of industry relations at Sound Exchange for a number of years. I've worked with record labels, management companies. I've worked with a number of digital streaming platforms. I've worked with Beats Music. I've worked with Apple Music. Currently, I work at Pandora on the industry relations team. I also work with an artist management company called the Blueprint Group. I oversee digital strategy for our clients. We represent Lil Wayne, G-Eazy, The Roots, Jill Scott. In the past, we've represented Drake, T.I., Kanye West, and a number of others. But I've been, really focused on that space for a long time. And I also wrote a book called The Music Business Toolbox and built tools for independent musicians like yourselves to help you commercially release your music. So why don't we start with the ladies down on the end, and then we'll work our way back here and we'll get into it.
Hello, is it on? Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Coleman. I work at Google in digital advertising, so anything that's related to social media marketing, anything in the digital space, things you see on YouTube, that's handled by my team. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Hey everybody, I'm Sammy. Sammy Approved is my brand. I am a media personality and content creator. Currently working at Radio 1 Atlanta alongside Patchwerk Recording Studios. You may have seen the I Do Music podcast that I host, and I moderate a lot of discussions normally, but I'm excited to sit and just answer questions this time, so, yes.
My name is Mike Wilson. I'm the co-owner of Patchwerk Studios and been chief engineer there for about 30 years. Also work with I Do Music is our product also, so Sammy and us we'll work together on these podcasts. And so my main thing is engineering. That's kind of what my whole thing has been for most of my life.
Morning, my name is J1. I am head of hip hop for Pandora. My background, I started out as a DJ, then was fortunate enough and blessed enough to get into terrestrial radio, where I did 12 years at Radio 1, and then in the beginning of this year, I was recruited by Pandora, and that's where I'm at now.
My name is Kelby, Cannick, publisher of Makin a magazine, founder of the membership. I started as a computer programmer. I started programming when I was 12, and then decided to be a rapper. But I made money as a rapper and doing a lot of the digital stuff that we'll be talking about today, and started Makin a magazine, and we help independent artists, getting them sponsored and media placements.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, I caught a little bit of one of the topics in the last panel. They were talking about metadata. I think it's a good place to start and we'll get into marketing and monetization and that kind of thing as well. But I think it's a good place to start with Mike. And it'd be great, Mike, if you could just give us a little bit more detail about metadata and specifically codes and stuff. When you're in the mastering process, like when you're recording a record, what are some of the things that you need to do to make sure that it's commercially ready for release?
Well, a lot of what's changed, obviously what's changed with the digital age is the need to fingerprint your song, basically, right? So in order for anything to get tracked digitally, the ISRC code, I don't know how in-depth they got into it with the legal panel, but the ISRC code is basically your fingerprint for your song. Without that, nobody knows whose song it is that they're trying to track and pay you, so you will not get paid. The ISRC code is important to get it during the mastering process because then it is embedded into the song and cannot be removed. So that is the way that when your song gets moved around from platform to platform, they can always trace your song and make sure that you, if you're tied to that ISRC code, can get paid. The big disadvantage of not doing an ISRC code and you send it out there and let's say your song becomes a hit, what if somebody else tags an ISRC code onto it in some way? Now all of a sudden they're getting paid. You got to be real aware. That was a hustle for a while, was people not knowing anything about ISRC codes and how they operated and not purchasing them and putting them in their songs, and then somebody else that knew a little bit more figured out how to do it and could basically take your royalties. Now, of course, those kind of things aren't as predominant as they used to be. When it's just like anything else, when the technology starts, a lot of people find a way to hustle around certain things, right? So the big thing is to be aware of how digital works. It's while it seems like maybe a lot of you guys, it doesn't seem like a new thing, it really is kind of a new thing. You know, back in 2000, we were still making cassettes to do reference mixes to. We started burning CDs in 2000 to where people could listen to those for reference mixes. So the digital thing isn't as a new thing as you think it is, right? So, I mean, it is a much more new thing than you think it is. It's not been around forever. So you got to be real aware of, with these codes, of making sure that your songs are embedded with these. These codes can be purchased from a company that manages codes. Like, we are an authorized manager, Patchwerk is. And there's other companies that you can purchase the codes from, and then those codes need to be embedded, and you need to keep track of what those code numbers are. It's the same kind of thing as like a barcode on a CD. It's the same idea for singles and stuff that you put out there. So you got to be real aware that you're doing these things. And like I said, it's put in during the mastering process. It's embedded into the song, so it follows the song wherever it happens to go.
Yeah, I just want to add that, so the ISRC, it stands for the International Standard Recording Code. The RIAA administers it, and when you work with an aggregator or a distributor like CD Baby or a TuneCore or DistroKid or Numbers, they can issue an ISRC for the tracks that you release, and there is a unique ISRC for every single recording. Your music won't even be able to get uploaded into the DSPs if you don't have an ISRC. So yeah, DSP is also an acronym for digital service provider. So Pandora, Spotify, Apple, Tidal, those are all DSPs. Mike, can you also talk a little bit more about, because I still want to kind of like walk through the life cycle of a record. So there's also things to be considerate of when you're thinking about like also in the mastering process. So, you know, mastering for digital release versus mastering for a CD or for vinyl.
Well, there actually are, there's, I don't know how you really, it's, I guess a code that, or a policy that's kind of set that if you're not mastered, especially like Apple, iTunes, things like that, if you don't have your song mastered to the standards that are required for that particular platform, they will refuse your record, which are certain levels. They don't want people mastering things too hot, too low, whatever. They want things to be consistent. So there is definitely, I think it's RP 220, I think is the standard that it's called, that your song has to be set at when it goes out, to make sure that everything kind of stays more consistent. They don't want just people doing things and sitting them out there, and every level is different without the songs as they're going out. As far as mastering, I mean, we don't really, I wouldn't say that we master differently for digital than like if somebody's gonna put a name, if somebody says specifically, yeah, I'm gonna put something on vinyl, then we may make adjustments for that kind of a thing. But most everything these days is going digital, so we are mastering more in that realm, and we are working under those kind of guidelines that the different mastering, that the different digital platforms are requiring for the mastering process.
Cool, thanks. So, so Jay, I want to kick this over to you. So now an artist has a record recorded, they've got their ISRC codes, they've uploaded it, they're uploading it, so because they want to get it out. What is the what does it take to sort of like to get onto Pandora and maybe even to some of the other services?
Well, you talked about they have to have a distribution company. You know, those are the companies like you said, See Baby TuneCore, they'll upload it onto the DSPs for you. And a lot of DSPs, you know, it used to be that you can do it yourself and just upload it directly to like Pandora or Spotify, but most of us have gotten away from that. I think Apple is the last one that still continues, you know, to allow artists to upload directly, but I think it's only a matter of time before they switch. But at the end of the day, like, you want to do everything in your power to try to get your song to stick out. So like, one of the things that, you know, you and I always talk about when we're talking with artists is having a relationship with your distribution company, because we probably get about 20 to 40,000 songs ingested in our system a day. And there's no way that I can physically go through all that music. So a lot of the times, the songs that I'm listening to are, you know, outside the priorities from the labels, are stuff that the distribution companies are talking to us about. So, you know, TuneCore might hit me up and say, hey, you need to check out this artist. They're doing X, Y, and Z. And I say, okay, I'll listen to it. And that's half the battle right there. You at least want people listening to your music now. They may or may not like it. That's, you know, on them. But you at least want to be heard and not just in the fray and in the herd.
So, and this, I'm gonna kind of open this up a little bit. What are some of the things that you all think should be done in order to set a record up? So if, you know, 50,000 tracks are coming out a day, what are some strategies, some tactics, aside from working and building a relationship with your distributor, what are some ideas and some things that you can do to help make sure that you stand out from the other 50,000 songs that are released each day?
Tell your story. I feel like a lot of independents make the release the beginning of their movie. And like the analogy I always use is like the last 20, 30 minutes of the movie is where all the action is. The gun fight, the car chase, the standoff. But if you don't watch the first 40 minutes, none of that means anything. And so a lot of times as independents, you want to jump out there already on, and you rob people of the opportunity to become a fan by letting them in on your live when you writing, when you picking out beats, when you in the studio, when you get the cover art done. All of those are opportunities to put out content so that when it does finally come out, that's the end of the movie, that's the climax. It's like, oh, it's here, it's ready, and people can be a part of that journey. But when you just put the music out cold, then it's like, okay, this is the beginning of the movie, where does it go from here? And if you don't have a big budget to do a video and do a radio campaign and to be at the BET Hip Hop Awards, then it goes nowhere. It just like kind of fizzles out. And you rob them of that by trying to be on and present this false image. So let people in on your journey.
I would also add to that, just utilizing the resources that are available. Obviously, a couple of years ago it was Vine. Now it's TikTok, which is essentially the same thing. Utilize those platforms because people like a Lil Nas X or even a Justin Bieber, if you look back on his career, were discovered through platforms that are huge now, like YouTube, TikTok, and use all of those things to your advantage. Also, what I tell my artists, I forgot to mention that I'm the VP of an independent music label called Dreams to Paper Entertainment. Plug there, shamelessly. But no, so I manage 4 independent artists under the label management team, and a lot of times, you know, they're waiting for things to hit, and it's like there is no rhyme or reason for how things happen, especially not in 2019 going into 2020. But I do know that social media and certain platforms like a TikTok really elevate your song and your record. And just because you put it out a couple months ago doesn't mean that you don't continue to plug that record. You know what I mean? Because somebody didn't hear it yet. So for instance, one of our artists, Jordan Carter, he started performing under the moniker King J to begin with, and we took him to South by Southwest and performed this record, Sauce Drippin' on the Left Side. This was 2 years ago. We did this at South by Southwest before the record even came out. By the time A3C rolled around, we were still doing that record, and it still hadn't even come out. By the time we did put it out, there were so many views on his video, there were so many streams on the song because people were waiting for it, so he built the hype around it. That's just one way, and it was one way. We didn't have necessarily a marketing strategy behind that initially, but we saw how the song took to people just by live performance. So I think being organic, but also utilizing resources and platforms that exist, or just burgeoning. So maybe some of you have a pretty decent following, and they'll reach out to you via email like, hey, we have this new platform. Use that platform. You never know. It could be the next TikTok. So I would just recommend that.
And also to add off of what they were both saying with both points, if you have content and you're able to pub it, things like YouTube, I mean, it's so easy to get in front of millions of people if you have the budget. And I would just say start allocating a little bit of funds. I believe YouTube views, it costs maybe like 2-3 cents per view. So if you have that, and it only counts after that point if they watch it past 15 seconds. So say you have a video, say you have a song, you can put that in front of millions of people, and if they don't watch it past the 15 seconds, one, you already got your name and your brand out there, two, you're not charged for it. So you have different ways and mechanisms of which you can get in front of those people to where your songs can remain at the top of their, top of mind for however long, whether it's past 2 years, 3 months, etc. But then you also want to have a place where people can engage with your content, so your social pages. So social media marketing, Facebook, Instagram, those things lead directly to your site. YouTube, you can make sure that if you have a website or you have something that you want them to download, it can click directly to that. So just start doing your research and being a little bit more intentional as far as how you want your marketing strategy to be, because it can be free, it can be paid. But if you have nothing for them to look to or go to past the one song, then you're not going to keep that following going. So I would definitely say make sure your content is heavy in the reservoir.
Mike, you look like you wanted to say something. You good? You good? Okay. All right. So I also want to interject too. Something that I think people overlook and is super important, especially for emerging artists, and this is not to discount the importance of social platforms like Instagram and Twitter and YouTube and TikTok, but building an email list, especially for emerging artists, is super, super, super important. Email marketing is still arguably the best way to develop your core fans, your super fans, people that you can rely on, and people who are agreeing to sign up for your email list are people who are being intentional about wanting to engage with you. And in addition to being able to just send those people emails, you can upload those email addresses to the Facebook ad manager, and it will match those email addresses to Facebook and Instagram accounts, and you can then run ads to them. And then as people engage with those ads, you can create what's called a custom audience, and then from that custom audience, you can then create what's called a lookalike audience. So you can be like, oh, hey, Facebook, go find me, 20,000 more people like these people who've already engaged with my content. So it's so email addresses, it can be a whole lot. But I also wanted to go back and start talking about a little bit more detail about running some ad campaigns and retargeting, which I think is a hugely important part of the industry that people are not taking advantage of. Literally, for a few dollars a day, you can run ad campaigns to reach and develop an audience. You want to expound on that?
Can I just say one
real
real quick thing on what you said about the email list? A lot of emphasis is put on these social media platforms, and the legal panel pretty much just talked about copyrights and how you get money out of the copyrights. That's an intangible asset that you own, and a relationship is an intangible asset that you own, and the email list and a mobile list is how you own that relationship. When you tell people to follow you on Instagram, you don't own that relationship. Facebook does. So when they decide to suppress your reach on that post, you got 50,000 followers and it gets seen by 50 people, that's because they own that relationship. So definitely what he said, put a lot of effort into owning those relationships by building up your own internal contact list.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Okay.
I was just what I was gonna say earlier, I've heard somebody say one time, they said, why are you trying to be famous in the world when you're not even known in your neighborhood? So I think a lot of it is you gotta build that base of people. Like, if people don't even know you in your own area, why are you trying to hit so hard and so worried about you need to build and you have to build it with the content and everything else, but you have to build yourself, start at a starting point and building blocks. You know, you're not gonna get famous overnight. So I think when you build those loyal fans, as you know, first with your neighborhood, then with your city, then with your region, it becomes a lot bigger thing when you're reaching out to everybody in the world. So I think a lot of people are just they skip the step of being, you know, of building it in that way. They just kind of jump out there and think, well, why isn't everybody liking me? It's because there's too much out there. There's just too much to filter through. So try to work with the people that you're starting, you know, try to work with your audience that's local and then work your way up and you'll get bigger. That's kind of how the whole thing starts, no matter whether it's digital, whether you're still doing it like the old school way of just touring, you know.
No, that's a very, very true point. I think it was even one of the, it was like an Instagram model. She was a famous girl. She had like 3 million followers, and then they gave her a clothing line because she had so much engagement. And I think literally maybe like 10 people bought from it. So understand, to that point, you do have to have that loyal audience. And like I say, engagement is a key to build that up. But to the point that he was talking about earlier, and for those of you guys who don't know, who are confused, Facebook owns Instagram. So when we're talking about that, those two are interchangeable. But no, so there's a lot of different ways in which you can engage and make sure that you're hitting with the correct audience. And so when you're saying, okay, my music is for people who are between the ages of 25 and 35, you can go in there and select audiences of, I want to hit people that are in Atlanta at this age range, interested in music, R&B music, hip hop music, whatever. There are a lot of different brackets that you can really break down and fine tune your audience so your content resonates with them. So that's number one. Two, once you actually identify and understand what your audience is, and if you don't necessarily have a clue, if you just put it out there, then Instagram, Facebook, Google, they will actually give you insights as far as, oh, this is resonating with these people the most, et cetera. So you actually have metrics on that. But then from there, you can actually build retargeting lists and campaigns. So whether it's via email, whether it's phone numbers, however they engage with you, you're actually able to then say, okay, this is my retargeting list, and I want to hit them in X amount of whatever you have. So say if you have like a new video.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I know you're in the space deep.
Am I getting too granular?
No. Can you explain retargeting?
Yes. So retargeting is pretty much a person that has engaged with your site or your content before, and then you want to retarget something else to them. So this is somebody that has done something or engaged with you in some type of way. Does that answer that question?
So there's an example I use all the time. So if you're on StockX and you're looking at a pair of red Nike Air Maxes, you may not buy them, but then you go onto Instagram and you're like, damn, there's an ad for those red Nike Air Maxes. Then you're on YouTube and there's an ad for those red Nike Air Maxes. And you're on RollingStone.com and you get an ad for those red Nike Air Maxes. You are being retargeted by StockX trying to get you to buy those shoes. You can do the exact same thing. If people engage with your content, you can then follow them wherever they go on the web and deliver them ads about your music, about your tours, about your merch, and that's what she's talking about. So that is what retargeting is. You got it? I need you guys to understand that. You got it? Yeah. All right.
Oh, no,
Back to you.
That was it. Yeah, I think you covered it. No, but then the blessing in that is that again, once you have new content, you have new things to promote, you can continually to hit them with that. So there's a way to make sure that they're following you, to your point, the story. So if you're in the studio writing, you're doing this, like you have multiple ways and touch points with your, fan base.
Another thing is always back to the ownership. Purchase your domain, get a website. Because they have a great product, Google Analytics. You put that little code snippet, and that's how you can also build up a list of people who actually typed in your URL, went to your website, looked at your merch, started the checkout, but didn't buy that sweatshirt. And then you do the retargeting campaigns for that. So like when you keep sending everybody to Instagram and all of these different things, once again, you robbing yourself of that relationship that you own. And they have a great product that'll let you see all that.
So increasingly, fans are engaging with their favorite artists through DSPs, right? Through the Pandoras, through the YouTubes, through the Spotifys and Apples of the world. So there's a lot of power in the hands of the programmers, the curators. And I want to take it to, I want Jay to chime in here, because I know people are beating you up all the time. Like, man, you come and say, oh man, you're head of hip hop, man, I need you to put me on. Can you start, boost my spins? Can you talk through a little bit of, like, what do you actually look for, and what really is the best way to get your attention?
Yeah, so, I mean, I get it. You want to get your song on playlist and get it out there, but the reality is like, we have so much data as far as what we could see on a song. Like, we know if people are skipping the song. We know the exact time that they're skipping the song. So we know the completion rates. We know, the skip through rates. So if your song isn't ready to be on one of those major playlists and stuff like that, like, the data will show. So, it's funny, when I first got over to the streaming side, I was like, man, I got all these playlists and all these stations. I can look out for people, I can put people on stuff, and what would happen is, I put people on, their songs will go like this, and then once those skip-through rates happen, or people are skipping the songs, or they're thumbing down the songs, they would drop like a rock. Because the way, Pandora works is, like, if people don't like the song and they're skipping it a lot and they thumb it down a lot, the algorithm or the genome or the system will not play that song for that person, and it'll automatically pull the song back. So I could program a song all day long, but at the end of the day, if the people aren't feeling the song, it's done. And there's really nothing I can do about it. So once, I really understood that and figured it out, my goal has been to, like, really just educate artists on things that they can do to really build the song up organically. So, like, Pandora, for example, has some great artist tools which are free that will help you build your song up organically and in a natural way, that when it's ready, or, you might think you have a hot song but the thumbs don't come back, you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's not as high as I thought it was, I need to move on to something else. So when it'll help you figure out the right song to see, like, okay, this is a song I want to go with, this is a song I want to invest in, this is a song I want you to consider for playlisting and stuff. So the main thing is, most of these streaming platforms do have tools at your disposal. Some are free, some you have to pay for, that you can do stuff on your own. So you want to do as much stuff as you can within your own power, and then have the data, have the evidence, and come to somebody or a curator or somebody else like that, then to ask for playlisting. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. Makes sense to you guys? All right. So yeah, I think what he's saying is, like, really get it going on your own, and then you can come back to Jay and be like, Jay and and me, and be like, yo, my record is popping. It's happening. Look what I did on my own.
Real quick, the other thing that you can do, a lot of streaming platforms do have, like, guest curators and stuff, including Pandora. So like for example, we have one right here, DJ La Bonita. She has her own playlist and stuff like that. So even if you can't get on, some of the main playlists, and that's just across the board, you have DJs, coalitions, different organizations that are doing their own playlists and have a great amount of engagement, that you could start off with them. And if you see traction on them, because we track all that stuff, then, you could start building your way up to some of the bigger playlists and whatnot. So there's different ways to go about it.
Great. So what I want to do is I want to go down the list, the row real quick, and ask each of you to tell the audience what the biggest mistake that you see independent musicians make. And then we're going to go into, we're going to open the floor up for questions. So there's a microphone here and there's a microphone over there. So when you're ready, start lining up. I'll start off. The biggest mistake I see artists make on a regular basis, like over and over and over again, is they'll spend all the money that they have, their entire budget, whether it's $1,000, $10,000, or $100,000. They'll spend everything to record a record, and they'll leave nothing to market their record. They'll leave nothing for doing all the marketing initiatives that we were talking about. They don't even save money to get their ISRC codes. So if you think about every other industry, when Marvel makes a new movie, whatever, they spend $100 million, I don't know, $100 million to make it, and they probably spend $200 million to market it, right? So Ford, they released a new F-150. Yeah, they spent a ton of money in research and development, and then they run ads during the Super Bowl. So you guys need to do those same things. All right? You're up.
I don't know. That's a good one. I say lying to themselves. Lying to themselves.
How so? How they lie to themselves?
Especially in the urban space, and I always say this is, it's okay to do music as a hobby. I think in this urban space, we try to play each other like, oh, you still doing your little rap thing, or you still, if you haven't reached certain heights, if you're not on the radio, if you ain't making millions of dollars, we discount. Like, doing music is art. It's a form of expression. You don't do that with a painter. You ain't got nothing in the Louvre yet. Like, you don't talk like that to no other type of artist, but we feel it's okay to do that to musicians. And it gets internalized in our culture that even someone who's just doing it because they enjoy it feel like I gotta be out here trying to get it, instead of, just put it up on SoundCloud, and if people like it, they like it. If they don't, they don't. And quit chasing this lottery mentality. It's like everybody's trying to hit it big, and it's like you can't predict the lottery. But this music stuff is it's very, very easy. I ain't gonna say easy, simple. And I think the percentages are much higher when you look at it like a business. And it's like you can't predict the lottery, but you can predict your paycheck. And a lot of people ain't putting in the work like it was a job to get that paycheck because they lying to themselves. So when you get home, look in the mirror like, is this what I really want to do? Am I willing to be up late? You'll work an extra job to buy Christmas gifts, work an extra job to have your promotional budget.
So I'm gonna say a few things because I see mistakes all the time. One mistake I say is the circle of people that you have around you. A lot of artists have yes people around them and will tell them like, oh yeah, anything that you put out is hot. I go to studio sessions and everybody in there nodding their head like, oh, that's the one. I'm sitting there like, excuse my language, that shit is trash. You know what I'm saying? But it's because, you need real people around you who are gonna tell you that ain't it. Whether it's your producer, your friend, or whoever, those people are necessary because the audience is gonna let you know if your stuff is real or not. Or, one of the people who are influential, whether you're on the streaming side or the radio side, a DJ, a program director, they're gonna tell you like, this ain't it. But if you got people around you that are telling you that's the issue, you gotta be open to that feedback. So being open to feedback. The other thing I would say is, have a plan. Viral moments like a Lil Nas X, those happen once or twice a year. Not everybody's gonna hit like that. So what are the things that you can control? I'm a firm believer in controlling the controllables. Not waiting for some big investor to come along or some viral moment to happen or some label to discover you or something like that. What are the things within your power, within your budget, within your reach that you can do on your own? And then if it's meant to happen, then gotta open up that door. You know what I'm saying? But by you just waiting on somebody or like Bryan always says, I'm gonna just put it out there and see what happens. You know what's gonna happen? Nothing, because you ain't got no plan. So those are like the two big mistakes. I can go on, but for the sake of time, I'm gonna pass it over.
I'd say the thing I see is trying to copy the latest hit. Just because somebody did it and you try to copy and do something just like that, be original and be yourself. The stuff that I see that's winning the Grammys and selling all the records is the different stuff. Like, oh, that's different. I didn't hear that last week. That's the stuff that makes you stand out from other people. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, well, I want it to sound like, this last artist sold a bunch of records. I'm just going to copy kind of what they did, and the amount will be popular. Not really. The reason that maybe theirs was popular is because theirs was different than the last one they heard. And there's, like I said, again, there's so much stuff out there. When somebody hears something different, they want to hear it again. When they hear something that just sounds the same, they just fast forward to the next one. And then the second thing I would say that is stop wearing all the hats. Everybody buys like a computer and then they think, okay, I'm the engineer, I'm the producer, I'm the rapper, I'm the promotion guy. They try to do everything, and there's people, like everybody on the stage is really good at their particular job, and we all do a different job, but we all work toward the same goals of playing music, right? So I think a lot of people, and I see it a lot, engineering, people buy, Pro Tools and they think they're the engineer, and then their music sounds terrible. And then, the next thing is they're like, well, I put it on Instagram, so I'm doing the marketing. It's like, no, there's a lot more to promotions and marketing than putting your music up on Instagram or on YouTube or whatever. So get people around you, and it's not necessarily they got to be, you got to pay everybody to do everything, but there are other people that are, they're good at what they do. So it's good to use those people in your plan to try to promote yourself.
Those are all great things. This is kind of similar a little bit to what J1 said, but also what I realize, especially with artists, I understand you're an artist and you're sensitive about you, but at the end of the day, you have to be the most confident and believe in what you're doing, or nobody else will. Like, it's almost like this laser focus. A lot of times I know I preach to my artists all the time, is like, stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and what is working for them. Because similar, Mike mentioned earlier about how, you need to get your local audience, and I agree with that completely. Like, you want to have an organic following from home first, but then you have cases of like a father who is an artist from Atlanta and nobody here fucked with him, like, at all in Atlanta, but he had this digital audience that really, really, really rocked with him, and that got him touring and got him, the money to then create his own little clique of people who now rock with him here in Atlanta. So I say all that to say is just like really focus and be confident and believe in what you're doing. Just because some people around you may not necessarily understand, but if you really believe in that and you take a look in that mirror and say, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do, then believe in it to your fullest. And there probably is somebody out there. They might not be in the United States. They might be in China. They might be in, somewhere in Asia, and they're rocking to your music. Go there, and that could work too if you truly believe in it. So I say be confident. I think being an artist and being a creator in general, you have to first believe in yourself. So.
And then the last two things I would say is consistency and branding. Those are the two biggest things that I see people, it doesn't end up being successful for them. I think people love to get off brand, and to their point, they like to emulate what they do, and it isn't true to what they do and their art. And you can definitely tell that in the music and what they put out. And then also when you are able to say, okay, this is who I truly am, putting something out once is not going to work. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime type of thing, but it's not going to work. If you don't have a plan and you're not consistent in that plan, and that plan is not true to your brand, you're going to falter somewhere down the line. You can continue to act like you're somebody for so long, but then when you actually have to get out there, continue to make music, things that you want to get certain endorsements, well, if they're not true to what you stand for, then why are you working with them? So just have an idea of who you are, what you want your brand to represent, and then what you want your marketing strategy to then represent from that brand, and then be consistent in that.
Okay, so we're opening the floor up for questions. Come up to the mic. Come up to the mic. If you have questions, please just come on, get in line behind the microphone now. There's one over there. There's one right over here.
Yeah, so I'm not an artist. I'm a videographer. Yeah, so basically I want to know, like, how on the business side, what do I need to do to have ownership of my videos, regardless of if the artist doesn't have their side together?
I mean, it's really about what the agreement is that you create. So if you're doing a video for an artist, generally they're going to want what's called a work for hire agreement that basically says the artist is paying you to do this work and create this video for them to use for marketing and monetization purposes, and they are going to want you to assign the copyright to them so that they own it. That's generally how it works. I mean, if you are creating videos for something on your own, not for, for a musician, then you own the copyright when you create it. Gotcha. You have to register that copyright. But generally, artists are going to want a work for hire that gives them the ability to exploit that copyright in whatever ways they see fit.
Gotcha. So how do I register?
Go to the Library of Congress. What is it, loc.gov or copyright.gov?
It's like eCorp.
So what?
The copyright?
Yeah, registering the copyrights.
It's like eCorp, right? eCorp.gov, I think is the copyright.
You said ecorp.gov?
eCorp, CORP.gov. Yeah, electronic copyright.
It's not LOC, loc.gov?
I've
I'm sure
always-
if you Google it, you'll find it.
I've always, yeah, just look up file for copyright, but I've always used eCorp. Like when we also offer that service at Patchwerk. So if you, but you can really do it yourself, and it doesn't cost a lot of money.
All right, for sure. Appreciate y'all.
Sure thing. Yes.
Okay, hi, my name is Jessica, and I'm an artist, and I also do YouTube as well. And I know that I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, and people talk about consistency is key. But my thing is, when it comes to consistency, I'm kind of consistent, but I do a lot of things. Like, I'm still in school, and I'm working and everything like that. So I'm trying to figure out how can I organize my time to be more consistent with my craft.
So I think the best thing when it comes to that is what I was talking about earlier is stacking up your reservoir. So you really want to build a lot of content on the back end before you even really start putting things out, so that when you do get busy and say you can't record this week or you can't record this month, you have videos that can continue to be posted. Whatever, you know, if you post every Tuesday, you can post every Tuesday. So just making sure you are very heavily stacked on content.
I would also suggest just creating a content calendar. That's what I suggest to artists especially as well. But if you create content on YouTube, you create a content calendar and say every Friday or whatever day I'm gonna release a beauty video or a cover video, and you have that stacked up, like she said, in your drive, then you'll be able to release that. And people understand that things happen, but get creative. If you're on the go, you know, put one of those things in your car and like record yourself singing along to music, like little things that you don't have to go in and like edit so much and like add too many things to it. But I also think don't excuse yourself from having other things to do, because you'll always have other things to do. But you can't be kind of consistent. You have to be consistent. So create that content calendar and stick to it. Discipline yourself.
Thank you.
I got one for you. Get small. Be consistent with doing small things. You may not be able to go work out for 2 hours every day, but you can do 5 push-ups every day. So pick something small that you can consistently do, whether it's be consistent with just writing for 15 minutes every day, be consistent on one social media platform. But it's like a lot of times you try to be consistent with trying to do everything or something that takes a lot of time and resources. And there's gonna inevitably be a day where it's late, I'm tired, I gotta get up early, and then it just throws everything off.
Yes, sir.
What's going on, y'all? The Entree Motivator. I motivate people to become entrepreneurs and live their dreams. But my question is, when I used to pay for Facebook ads, when I used to pay for Facebook ads blindly, you know, people would view my page, people would view my Instagram, people would view my YouTube or whatever. I'm not an artist, but I have a business. So I would get that view, and then people would leave. You know, you would never see them again sometimes. So one thing I found out is what I want y'all, what my question is, I found out to capture that lead, to capture that email, to capture that, as soon as you pay for that ad, I used to pay for just views, and then you wasted money. But I used to now I capture that email, and so I exchange money for email. So then I sell them later on to follow me everywhere else or whatever. But my question is, for artists that are out here paying for YouTube views, for paying for, you know, ads, paying for their page likes, what are some ways that they can capture those people?
So typically, and I'm gonna just keep it real with y'all, if someone comes to your site and they leave and then you lose them forever, your content probably wasn't good, or you just didn't hit right with them, right? And so the idea that you want to think about social media or marketing, or just marketing in general, is the marketing is to drive the people to you, to your content. But it's up to you to make sure that your content hits and is resonating with them and it's actually something of quality. So when you're thinking about saying, okay, well, how do I capture that lead? It's pretty much saying, one, who is my target audience? Like, who am I actually looking to target? What do they like? Where are they at? Because again, if it's not, you know, necessarily what you do, but it's what they do, you're following them. And so the idea is, once you then have that and you have a messaging that's consistent with your brand, what you think will resonate with your artist, that will essentially lead them to your page, and then you can continue to build that email list, et cetera, like he was talking about, and retarget them, which is what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I would just add real quick that there are definitely some tools that you can use that make email capture pretty easy. I mean, pretty much all of the email platforms like MailChimp and FanBridge have very simple email captures, but give people something for it. Say, hey, here's a free download if you just give me your email address. Here's some exclusive content. I'll let you know first when I'm going on tour. I'll give you access to exclusive merch. Doing those kinds of things, there's got to be some kind of value exchange. Like there's got to be some reason that somebody's willing to give you their email address. So you do that, and then you start small. Man, your first goal should be, I need to get 50 email addresses. Then it's 100. Then it's 250. Then 500. You'll just build that email list over time. You can also use Facebook Messenger is really great. And there's some really cool tools in Facebook Messenger where you can automate like responses, and it seems like people are talking to you, but really they're talking to a computer. They're talking to a bot. So anyway, but get those direct connections.
I would say, to piggyback off of that, is have an end goal. A lot of times you do a lot of promotion and marketing, you do all this stuff. It's like you go lease a space, you buy stock, you put all this stuff, you hire people, you run radio ads, and you get customers in, but you didn't buy a cash register. And it's like you don't have an end goal. How does this turn into profit for you? So whether that's the email list, whether it's them being on there for a certain amount of time, you want to have a metric that something you can measure that's a conversion, so that when you run your ads on Google and Facebook, there's this thing that you're trying to funnel everybody into doing. And so when you don't have that action, whether it's selling merch or whatever it is, then you don't know what your return on investment is. And you get caught up in how many likes did it get, how many views did it get, but those aren't assets. Those are like, unless you're just trying to be a social media influencer, but just like she was alluding to the article earlier, she had, the young lady had like 2 million followers and couldn't get 20 people to buy a t-shirt. So you don't want to just be spending money for not.
Let me give you guys a bit of insight too with respect to monetization, because we've been talking about like on the marketing side, but like how you actually monetize the music when you use the distributors or aggregators that Jay1 and I talked about to put your music on the various platforms. They are going to make it out there, and then when there is revenue that is generated, they will collect it and then pay you. To give you, and these are very rough numbers. These are rough numbers, and they're going to vary for a number of different factors. But for on-demand streams, the average is roughly about 0.5 penny of revenue per stream. So that means 1 million streams is about $5,000. For YouTube and non-interactive streams, so like digital radio streams, it's about $2,000 per million streams. So when you think about driving traffic to places where people are consuming your music, like how much money is it going to take to get to the point where you get those 1 million streams? If you're spending, $10,000 to do it, you're still out $5,000. So just wanted to give you a bit of a sense of what the revenue is associated with those streams. Yes, sir.
How you doing? My name is Fresh Briscoe. I own an internet radio station. I have a question about Google, and I have a question about engineering. With Google, does Google do Google Analytic classes or consulting at any point, other than just calling?
Yeah. So there's different platforms. So we have something called Sandbox.
Okay.
And there's also something called Google with Accelerate. If you Google those things, they'll have them. So if you just say like local Google Analytics classes in Atlanta,
Okay.
There's usually like a workshop maybe like once every 3-4 months. But then if there's like a huge demand for it, then we'll curate one. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Thank you. And as reference to engineering, I've been engineering for 8 years, and I'm thinking about going to school with it because I reached the threshold. How far advanced would the degree get me in engineering, audio engineering, production?
Dell, the schooling, well, for us, you're required to have the schooling to even get in the door.
Right.
But, as far as if you've been engineering and things like that, what schooling is really going to get you is the basics and the basic knowledge and all that kind of stuff. I don't know that getting a degree at this point, if you're doing it and you're doing what you want to do with it, if you're wanting to get into a big studio and a large studio and try to become an employee in that kind of fashion, you would have to have the school to move forward. I don't know really any of the studios in town that really just pick people up off the street.
Perfect.
You got to have kind of an education because they want you to have that basis. I mean, you're in there using $1 million worth of gear.
Right.
They want you to have a basis not to break it to start with. So you can kind of, there again, you kind of just got to determine where you want to go.
Okay.
If you're going to go to school, then I would think you would want to do that if your focus is going to be, I want to be an engineer for a career.
Right.
Otherwise, if you're just going to do it as, I'm doing my friend's stuff, it's a hobby, then doing what you're doing is probably fine, and watching YouTube videos to figure out how to do something. But if you're trying to really legitimately do it as a career, yeah, school is a kind of a necessity.
My man, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, right here.
K-Tech, songwriter. Trying to see with the DSPs, it's kind of a two-part question. Is there any way to get the analytics on the playlist without reaching directly out to the people that have the playlist?
Yeah, so for Pandora, we have a website called Next Big Sound, which will basically break down all your analytics, including what you're doing on the platform. But it also looks at like your social media analytics, and it'll show you like your heat map as far as where your streams and all that stuff is coming from. So that's good, like if you're trying to do like a tour or you want to get bookings in another city. But it's very extensive, and most of the other DSPs have tools like that for artists that you can actually see your analytics.
But I mean, like for the people that own the playlist.
That
Like
own the
if I'm
playlist-
trying to get on their playlist, can I look at their analytics any way other than reaching out to them?
Well, the curators usually have the analytics. They could see like what the numbers are. Now, whether they share it with you or not, that's on them, you know. But again, like the tool you can use is like the different artist tools that they do have, and that will give you an idea as far as like where you stand, if your numbers are going up, your numbers are going down. Like Next Big Sound will show you if your thumb ups are reaching a certain threshold. So if you see your thumbs ain't there, and you see a decrease in spins, 1 + 1 = 2. So right. you can kind of put the pieces together and see what's going on without actually seeing the actual stuff that the curators see.
And does the Next Big Thing show for
Next
all
Big
of them?
Sound.
Next Big Sound?
No, it just shows for Pandora, but like I said, each streaming platform has some sort of analytics tool that you can look at.
Well, that was the
There's-
second part.
Spotify
There's
app-
another one, Chartmetric. Chartmetric, it aggregates it from the different DSPs as well as your social media. And then it also, it assigns a score so you can see similar artists in your genre that you might be able to collaborate that are on your same level as far as those things.
That's fire.
Chartmetric. Chartmetric.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So these are going to be our last 3 questions. Yes, ma'am. Take the mic out. There we go.
Thank you. Hello, blessed to be here. My name is Trill from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Hi, everybody. My question is about consistency and audience engagement. So I know you spoke about, I was writing down like 30,000 questions for everybody. So my question is, how do you, how often should you drop new content without overlapping the project that you're already working on? Because you have to be consistent with your crowd, but how do you keep the engagement and not, I guess, I'm an artist. I don't know if I said that, but I'm an artist, by the way. So as an artist, you're supposed to always keep putting out new things, but how often are you supposed to do that without overlapping the new single that you just put out or something like that?
Honestly, I think that's a case-by-case scenario. There's no correct answer for that. It depends on your content. Like if you have content that's really like doing well or bubbling, you know, and there's a demand for it, that they want you to keep on putting out stuff, then you do that. Then, you know, if you have something that's taking time to build up, but you're seeing traction out there and you want to like focus on that, then, you know, you let it breathe for a little bit. So it really just depends on your content and like your restrictions as far as do you have the time and the resources to focus on putting out that amount of content. Because like if you don't, then you'll have that problem where it might overlap each other. But if you're in a situation where like the demand is calling for it, like, okay, we want more, and you have the resources to put it out and it's being put out effectively, then by all means. So there's really, you know, I'm sorry, there's really like no correct answer for it. It just depends on your particular situation, if that makes sense. Anybody else?
Okay,
Here's the strategy
we're
for it.
getting the wrap-up sign, so we need to
Okay.
get through these last 2 questions real quickly. Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot. So in terms of advertising and trying to engage your audience, what are some things that you've seen artists do that just blatantly don't work, but we haven't really necessarily caught on to that just yet?
Spamming their audience. Listen now, listen, go listen to me now, stream my music, and that's the only thing they post. That sucks.
Or just like bombarding, yes. Or just bombarding like DJs or executives or people that you feel like like you gotta imagine most of us sitting here who work directly with artists or in music, we get thousands of songs per day. And a lot of times, I know for me personally, people will reach out to me unbeknownst to me why or where they want me to post their music or anything, because I don't blog anymore, I don't write for publications anymore. So it's always interesting to see when artists directly target someone like me who just may be like an influencer or I mean, I work directly in music, but what do you want to get out of it? So when you go and you send somebody your song or you're spamming in a sense and reaching out to people, have an idea or like your motive. What do you want out of this? Because I'm busy. Like you can't just bombard me with music or anybody up here. I'm sure J1 gets it all the time. It's like, what do you want out of this? Do you need playlisting? Do you need this, X, Y, and Z? So be direct in what you're trying to get out of the situation.
Also, be direct in what you can do. Have a value proposition.
Absolutely.
We know you're contacting us because you want something, but what's in it for us?
Right.
And that's with anybody you deal with, fans to DJs to curators.
Don't send MP3s. Nobody wants those in an email. Like they block up the email. Oh man, that is so annoying. Don't send it. Send people links. If you want somebody to look at something cool, send a link in the email. Do not send your whole song in an MP3 and put 5 of them on one email and it blocks up everybody's mail server. That's everybody just tries to throw that away. Nobody, even if any MP3 goes through, I don't even try. I just try to delete it as quick as I can before it even gets to me. So.
All right, last question.
Yeah, real quick question.
Make it a good one. Pressure's on.
Okay, yeah, I'll make it a real good question. Razzie, I'm an artist out of Miami. I do a lot of single releases. I hear a lot of people asking, how come you won't release an album or EP? Because, they got like 50 mixtapes, 50 albums, and nobody really knows your name. So do you think doing single release plans, is a better idea than albums for a smaller artist?
Yes.
I want to, because that piggybacks off of what. So this is just a strategy that I just put out there for artists. You don't have 2, 3 singles. You got one single. That's the one that you introduce people with. But you still put out music. Having a single doesn't mean you can't release other music, but that's the one that you're performing, that's the one that you're promoting. But then for the people who you've onboarded with the single who like that, you still are able to still now email next month that, hey, this is a new record that I just dropped. And so you're consistently testing other records while you're pushing a single to bring in new customers, new fans, new audiences, and then there's a treasure trove of other material that's out there. So once they like, oh, this is dope, they can go find these 6, 7, 8, 9 other songs and still be fed every month with new material.
I would also suggest, or I agree with you, but I think also just putting singles out and maybe you think that this single, you could do a focus group or something to determine which single would be best to lead with, but if you don't know and you're putting out singles and then you can then test to see which one is working. For instance, I mentioned Sauce Drippin' on the Left Side. We didn't know that, or Kendrick, his other song, Kendrick of the South, we didn't know which one was gonna take better, but we had put them out as singles a year prior to even releasing the project. So you can always put those, especially as an artist that you're not well known just yet. Why not just kind of test those things out to begin with before you put out a debut album or a debut mixtape or whatever the case may be, instead of wasting your money. And that way you can develop a budget based upon those releases or around those releases. Say you do a video, you have time to create the content and continue, like you said already, continue to promote what you've already put out. Don't think that just because you put something out a couple months ago, I have to stress that you can continue to promote that song and the other singles and whatever doesn't stick, that don't need to be on the album.
All right, please join me in giving my fellow panelists a hand.